Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Today we read about the time in which Assyria had gone in and taken over the northern tribes, and then after removing them from the land, they bring in other people from other nations to assimilate within that area. And as they do this, you find that lions come in. The Lord sends lions to kill many of the people. And so the king of Assyria sends priests who are familiar with the law of the Lord to go in and instruct them in the ways of the Lord. And even then, even though they do, in one sense, fear Yahweh, the God of Israel, at the same time they were still holding on to these other idols that they had known from times past. And in 2 Kings chapter 17, in talking about all this, we get a pretty concise explanation of what it means to walk in a relationship with God. And it hits pretty much all the high points and helps a person in seeing, what it really boils down to. What are the basic uh, parts of engaging in a relationship with God? There in chapter 17, starting in verse 36, it says, "But Yahweh, who brought you up from the land of Egypt with great power and with an outstretched arm, him you shall fear, and to him you shall worship, and to him you shall sacrifice. And the statutes and the judgments and the law and the commandments which he wrote for you, you shall be careful to do forever, and you shall not fear other gods." And so this was something that had been left to, of course, the children of Israel, but these were also principles that would apply to the other people who were coming into the land. And some of the things that are brought out here is that you shall fear the Lord and you shall worship the Lord. And it's important that these two things are brought up first. Before one can sacrifice, before one can obey the Lord, as we'll talk about in a moment, there's a sense in which we have to first fear the Lord and also worship the Lord. Fearing the Lord means that we respect his high position. We respect who he is and his high authority and all of his power and all of his glory, and recognizing the fact that we owe our lives to him and directing our hearts to him. And that's a disposition of heart that we first must we must first have before we can get into even sacrifice or obedience. We have to first have that disposition of heart that shows that God is one who is high above us and one that we should reverence. But worship is kind of connected to love, loving the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, recognizing that he is worthy. He is worthy to be praised. He's worthy to be adored and to be loved. That he is the one that we should join our hearts to in worship and in devotion. And that too is a disposition of heart that has to take place as we turn to the Lord. We recognize his worthiness and we respond to him in that way. And so the fear of the Lord and the worship of the Lord has to do with the heart, the disposition of the heart. And that's the beginning point of living a life of relationship with the Lord. It's all about the heart, and it all starts off with the heart. But then he talks about sacrifice, and to him you shall sacrifice. Now, back then, it was the sacrifice of bulls and goats and sheep and things like that. But today, our sacrifices are very selves. We need to offer up ourselves as a living sacrifice unto God, as Romans chapter 12 talks about. We offer up ourselves as sacrifices to the Lord, and of course, we won't fully and wholly give ourselves as a sacrifice to the Lord until we have first feared the Lord and have learned to worship the Lord. It's once we have that disposition of heart, then we can then turn to the Lord and say, "Lord, use my hands, use my feet, use this body as an instrument of righteousness for your name's sake, and I offer my body as a living sacrifice, and I offer my very self for your service and to be devoted to you." And then that leads to obedience. He says, "And the statutes and the judgments and the law and the commandments which he wrote for you, you shall be careful to do forever." Once we pretty much surrender ourselves to the Lord as a living sacrifice, obedience just naturally flows out of that. No longer concerned about ourselves, now having self put to the side, we can now open up ourselves to the Lord to obey his commandments and to obey what he instructs us to do and live a life that is pleasing and satisfying to him. And so, as we think about our relationship with the Lord, I think this is a very basic way of looking at it, and I think it covers pretty much all the points. We have the fear of the Lord, that is the reverence for God, the worshiping the Lord in love and devotion, but then also offering ourselves as a sacrifice to God, which then flows into obedience to God. And so, as we relate to the Lord and as we try to teach others to relate to the Lord, this is very helpful, and hopefully we can use this to gauge ourselves to see, are we really in line with the Lord and really holding up our side of the relationship in reverence and worship, in sacrifice, and also in obedience. And so these are some things we reflect on and think about as we do our reading today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.